Europe has a big problem. To the east, Russian aggression. To the west, the US is pulling back its influence and support. And within Europe itself, 3 decades of military neglect. You see, the US still has 100,000 troops stationed in Europe, plus 6 nuclear bases. But with Trump in office, those troops are no longer a guarantee. Military experts say that if Europe wants to deter Russia without American support, it needs at least 300,000 more troops. The problem? Europe has done the opposite. For decades, European nations have downsized their armies. Take France, for example. Its military personnel numbers have shrunk by 38% since the 1990s, and France is not alone. This phenomenon can be seen across all of Europe. One way to reverse this trend is conscription, a system where men and women are required to serve in the military for a set period, usually around a year. And in this video, we'll break down why Europe's military numbers are so low and whether conscription really is the answer. Let's look at the military personnel numbers from 1990 to 2024 across major European countries. As you can see, every country has fewer troops today than they did back then, with Germany and Italy seeing the biggest declines. Germany, for example, had 545,000 troops in 1990, a number that has drastically fallen to 181,000 in 2024. Poland also saw a decline, but unlike most of Europe, they've shifted gears and are rapidly expanding their military. In fact, their personnel numbers have almost doubled since 2020, and they're aiming to double again. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk has announced plans to build a 500,000-strong army. Germany, on the other hand, has struggled to increase its numbers. As of late 2024, a staggering 28% of lower enlisted positions remain unfilled, along with nearly 20% of the required commissioned officer roles. At the same time, the Bundeswehr is aging. The average age of German troops has risen from 32.4 years in 2019 to 34 years by the end of 2024, a real sign of ongoing recruitment challenges. This isn't just a problem in Germany though. France, the Czech Republic, and the UK have also reported similar struggles with unfilled military positions. There are many reasons why recruiting new soldiers has become so difficult, but some of the biggest factors include shifting values, unappealing salaries, and demographic changes. Simply put, young civilians today are overwhelmingly against war, against increasing military spending, and against military operations abroad. And the data backs this up. Europeans show a striking lack of willingness to fight for their country. A Gallup study asked people around the world, if there were a war involving your country, would you be willing to fight? In the G7 and EU nations, only 31% said yes, while 46% said no. Compare that to the rest of the world, where 61% would be willing to fight versus just 28% who wouldn't. A massive difference. And when we break it down by country, the divide becomes even clearer. Italians are the least willing to fight for their country, followed by Germany and then Austria. Among younger generations, willingness is even lower, with slightly higher numbers among older populations. On the other hand, Sweden, Poland, and Romania stand out as the most patriotic when it comes to defending their country. This brings us to the second part of the video. Can conscription really solve Europe's military recruitment problem? Now, before we dive in, here's something exciting we want to share with you. If you want quick, easy to understand updates on all things EU, our Instagram page is the perfect place to stay informed. We break things down with maps, infographics, MEP interviews, fun facts, and interactive stories, all designed to make the European Union more accessible and engaging. So don't miss out. Follow us today. Link in the description below. This brings us to the second part of the video. Can conscription solve Europe's military recruitment problem? Most European countries do not have conscription, meaning military service is entirely voluntary. Their armies consist of paid professional soldiers, and if they leave the military, they normally become part of the reserve and can be called back in case of emergencies. However, some European countries still have conscription. In these nations, citizens are required to serve for a set period. But not all conscription systems work the same way. In fact, there are 3 different models. The first is the mandatory service model, used in Finland and Estonia. Here, military service is compulsory for all men over 18, requiring up to a year of service. This starts with basic training for all conscripts, followed by specialized training for selected roles. Women can volunteer, but they are not required to serve. Men who object to military service can opt for a 12-month civilian service, working in healthcare, social welfare, or other public services. At the end of their service, conscripts have two options. They can pursue a full-time career in the military, or they can return to civilian life, but remain in the reserve, meaning they can be called upon in case of national emergency. The second model is the lottery-driven system, used by Denmark, Lithuania, and Latvia. In this system, all men over 18 must attend a mandatory draft examination, but only a randomly selected group is required to serve. And then there's a selective compulsory service model, used by Sweden and Norway. In this system, candidates are chosen based on their motivation, qualifications, and military needs, rather than being drafted at random. In Sweden, for example, all 18-year-olds, regardless of gender, must complete an enlistment form detailing their education, health, and interest in the military. With around 100,000 individuals filling out this form per year, the Swedish armed forces cannot take everyone. Instead, only about a quarter are invited for further testing, and from that group, an even smaller number is selected to serve. In recent years, Sweden has prioritized candidates who show strong motivation to serve, along with other factors like physical fitness and military needs, making selection highly competitive. Now, regardless of these three models, the Nordic and Baltic conscription systems have also introduced a range of incentives to make military service more appealing. Norway, for example, provides conscripts with substantial monetary compensation throughout their service, along with a lump sum payment upon completion. In Sweden, the armed forces issue certificates to conscripts, ensuring that the skills they gain during service are recognized in the civilian job market. Meanwhile, in Denmark and Lithuania, the military offers employment and educational support, both during and after service. And Latvia takes it a step further, granting free higher education to volunteers who complete their service and pass their entrance exams. So, now to the big question. Could any of these conscription models work in other European countries struggling to recruit soldiers? Let's take Germany as an example. The country aims to increase its military personnel from 181,000 to over 200,000, but recruitment has been a major challenge. Germany suspended compulsory military service in 2011, previously following the mandatory conscription model, where all men had to serve. Today, about half of German citizens support bringing it back, and Friedrich Merz, the likely next chancellor, has also spoken in favor of reintroducing conscription. However, Germany's defense commissioner, Eva Högel, argues that simply reviving the old system isn't realistic. She warns that it would be too much for the Bundeswehr to handle, citing a lack of facilities and instructors. She also raises concerns about which age groups will be required to serve and whether they would be willing and able to do so. Not to mention, it would be incredibly expensive. And this is what makes the Sweden selective compulsory model particularly interesting, and perhaps the most applicable. Larger countries like Germany have a bigger recruitment pool and don't need all eligible citizens to serve. A selective conscription model allows the military to train only the fittest and most motivated recruits, focusing on critical roles in engineering, medicine, and cybersecurity, which are essential for operating high-tech weaponry. While everyone is technically eligible, these systems prioritize those willing to serve. And since public opinion is the biggest obstacle for European governments considering conscription, a model that ensures no one is forced to serve against their will makes this a far more attractive solution. Here's what I think. The idea of serving for a year isn't a bad one. It helps strengthen social cohesion and gives people a chance to give back to the country and continent they grew up in. However, I think it's only fair that both genders serve, with opt-outs available for those who don't want to enter the military. And that's why I really like Sweden's model, selective compulsory service, where the best and most motivated are selected for service. I also like the idea of making it attractive by offering financial incentives and transferable skills, making it a valuable experience for future careers. And for those who aren't enlisted in the military, I think there could be an option to contribute in other ways, such as a 6-month social service between the ages of 18 and 50. Personally, I wouldn't mind doing something like this, but let me know what you think in the comments. And if you want to see more EU Made Simple, and you like the idea of, let's say, a European army, check out the video on the topic here. Also, follow us on Instagram and stay up to date on all things EU. And to support us further, consider joining us on Patreon. Every contribution helps us bring you more in-depth discussions on Europe's future.